So this video is all about the interview. That is the spoken evidence. So critical to getting this right is to figuring out what the purpose is. And it's quite straightforward. The purpose of the interview is for you to share evidence or data so that a good discerning decision can be made. And the sharing of data is both ways. So you need data about them and they need data about you. But if we keep to that really strict purpose, then some of the stuff that kind of gets in the way and concerns and undermines us will be minimised. So in the interview, you share data both by what you say and what you do. Both things. So we think that in order for you to be demonstrating yourself really well so that they can make a good discerning decision, preparation is the real key. So some work involved in getting you to the place where you can be at the interview, relaxed, turning up as you, and being able to give good account of yourself. This, by the way, isn't about getting you a job. This is about you demonstrating yourself well so that they can discern and so that you can get the right job. So here's a way of preparing. So this isn't about selling yourself and blowing your own trumpet and any of that stuff, because that doesn't feel helpful, but it's just about demonstrating you well. You need data to share. It needs to be real. This is evidence of what you have done, of what happens when the gifts that God has given you are put into practice. Dreaming up these things in the heat of an interview, when you're anxious, is just too difficult. Being able to do it in advance really, really helps. Those of us who are reflectors, and there are a number of us in the Church of England, finds that our best answer comes a week later. So what we're trying to do is to preempt that and help you get to the answer at the right time. Okay, so this is step one. What are the 8 key themes? What are the 8 topics or areas that if you were in the interviewer's seat, that you would want to find out about? And this information primarily probably comes from their profile, the person's spec. But what are the 8 key areas? You know the stuff. It's things like ecumenical work, working with children and young people, enabling lay people, preaching, these big topics, conflict, leadership. 8 doesn't seem very many, right? But interviews tend to be 45 minutes to an hour maximum. So that isn't an awfully long time. So for each one of those key themes, identify a story that you can tell, which demonstrates how you have shown leadership or managing conflict or communication or whatever that theme is. And for that story, there's a flow. And it goes like this. First of all, what was it like beforehand? And that's a sort of line drawing rather than detail. So what was it like? When I arrived, there wasn't any Sunday school. Point 2. So what did you do? So what I did was I talked to a couple of the parents at the school gates to see if they were interested in there being a Sunday school, and there were a few people around the edges of the church who who had a few things to say. So I went out and I talked and I listened, and I found that there was a number of people that were really interested and excited about the prospect. That sort of thing. What did I do? I got them together, got them in a room. We talked about it. We thought about some possibilities. Step 3. So what happened? So this is the kind of end of the story narrative. So what happened was we started doing a Sunday school first Sunday of the month, and we had a couple of leaders that had been trained, and we did some work to enable another couple of helpers as well. So there was a bit of a team going. And what happened as a result of that, the Sunday school is now running 2 times a month, and we get about 7 or 8 kids. So that's the story, that's the narrative, that's the thing demonstrating how I enable children's work. Step 4 then, how is this story relevant to this place, to this post? And that could be, yes, I would come and I would listen and hear what people had to say and see what would be useful here. So that's the narrative. It starts with evidence, example, starts with story, and it moves into something which is aspirational about what could happen here. So stories for each one of those 8 key themes. And what you'll notice in this is that this isn't about figuring out what the questions are going to be, because that's really hard. But there are themes that are likely to come up. And by preparing stories, you're going with your stuff in your bag. You're going ready. If you're concerned about recall, have a think about methods of recall that have worked in the past. Perhaps when you were doing exams or something. Did you do mind maps? Did you write lists? Did you speak it out to practice so that you feel clear about what it is that you've got to say? It's a good idea to practice telling these stories. They don't need to be word perfect. That isn't what this is about. It's not about practicing for a performance, but it's about having the stories there so that you can, in the moment, tell them. And feel comfortable with them. So that's what preparation looks like. And in the room, don't start talking before you have a kind of understanding of what it is that you're going to say. It doesn't need to be absolutely right, but it's good to have some idea. And having these themes already sorted helps with that. It means that instead of having to go into your whole back catalogue of everything you've ever done, that you just go to the folder marked Managing Conflict and you tell your story from that. What else to do in the room? Check in that you're providing the right level of detail. 2 or 3 questions in, can I just check? Is this the kind of level of detail you're looking for? The reason to ask that question is so that you know then, are you being too verbose, telling everything, or are you answering in too brusque or short a way? And then you can tweak and adapt your style. I think something else in the room is it's worth recognising that we're on the same side. What we all want is the right person for the right post. So therefore, all of our jobs are about sharing data and about listening really effectively so that we can discern. Another tip for in the room, don't overread the signs. So it's a perfect place for some of us to become amateur psychologists and infer from people's body language or their level of attention whether or not we've got the job. But actually that stuff is not helpful here and now. And it would be good to have a half hour booked in your diary for the following day to kind of do a post-mortem on what went on, but not in the room. Actually, in the room, your focus needs to be about sharing data. And interestingly, then, you can tell at the end of the interview as you walk out of that door whether it's been successful. Because success at interview is about demonstrating you well, rather than about getting a job. If you demonstrate yourself well and they say no to you, then that's better than you having oversold yourself and them saying yes to that version of you. Not every job is the job for you. But discerning and praying and asking God to be present all the way through. And learning when the answer's no is good. So here's my question for you. Here's a reflection for you to be thinking about. Who is it that you want them to meet? What is it that you want them to understand about you? As you leave the interview room, what do you want them to be thinking about you?